Hello and welcome to episode 55 of the Idiot Book Nook podcast. My name is Blazewing, my pronouns are she, her, and they, them.
I am the Reading Dragon, and my pronouns are she, her.
My name's Lady Punnet, my pronouns are primarily she, her, sometimes they, them. Today is a they, them kind of day.
And not featured here, or not here right now, unfortunately, due to other circumstances, is Crittershy, who goes by, I believe, she, her, and they, them, depending on the days, if I remember correctly. Crittershy may be joining us later this episode, or maybe joining us next episode, because as you guys know, we do basically we record 3 episodes per streaming session. And Crittershy had some other things to take care of right now. If you'd like to follow us on social media, you can do so at linktr.ee/idiotbooknook. You'll be able to find our podcast feed, all of our socials, you'll be able to find a link to our website, and you'll be able to find a link to our Anchor platform, where you can also leave us voicemail messages. I know I say that like every episode, and I'm going to continue to keep on saying that. But, with that, does anybody have any housekeeping they need to take care of at the beginning of this episode?
I don't want to do chores!
Not that kind of housekeeping.
No. Not that I can think of.
Yeah, nothing that comes to the top of my head.
Cool. We are doing episode 40 of the Amulet of Samarkand today. We have 4 chapters left of this book. For those of you that might be newer listening, the way we do this is we read 1 chapter per episode, and then we sit down and we have a discussion. And that pretty much is the episode. So we have kind of I want to say an analytical discussion, but we do tend to go off on tangents from time to time. With that being said, though, narrator, are you ready? Oh, not quite just yet. Awesome.
Now I am.
Cool. Narrator.
I just sent out another tweet.
Narrator, please take it away with Chapter 40.
The Bartimaeus Trilogy, Book 1, The Amulet of Samarkand. Written by Jonathan Stroud. Narrated by the Reading Dragon. Voice acted by the Reading Dragon, Blazewing 2010, Lady Punnet, and... when they get back, Crittershy. There's a kitty. Yes.
This is a nugget.
Hello, Nugget. Hi, sweet
dear.
boy.
I have now messed up my fig. Okay.
There we go. Chapter 40. Nathaniel. The bolt of jet black plasm hit the nearest display table. The shaman's headdress, the pots and pipes, the table itself, and a section of the floor all vanished with a noise like something being sucked sharply down a drain. Foul steam rose from the wound in the floor. A few feet away, Nathaniel rolled head over heels and got straight to his feet. His head felt woozy from the roll, but he did not hesitate. He ran for the next display table, the one with the metal cubes. As the old magician raised his hand once more, he scooped up as many cubes as he could and disappeared behind the neighboring bookcase. The second plasm bolt struck just behind him. He paused for a moment. Beyond the bookshelves, the old magician made a clucking noise with his tongue.
What are you doing? Do you plan to toss some mites at me?
Nathaniel glanced at the objects in his hand. Not mites, but scarcely any better. Prague cubes, minor conjurer's tricks peddled by low-caste magicians. Each cube was little more than a mite bottled up inside a metal shell with a variety of mineral powders. When released with a simple command, might and powders combusted in an amusing way. Silly diversions, nothing more. Certainly not weapons. Each cube had a paper wrap stamped with the famous distilling glass logo of the Alchemist of Golden Lane. They were old, probably 19th century. Perhaps they would not work at all. Nathaniel picked one and tossed it, wrapping and all, over the top of the shelves. He shouted the release command. With a brilliant shower of silver sparkles and a tinny melody, the imp inside the cube combusted. A faint but unmistakable fragrance of lavender filled the gallery. He heard the old magician burst into a hearty chuckle.
How charming. Please, some more. I wish to smell my best when we take over the country. Do you have Rowan flavor? That would be my favorite.
Nathaniel selected another cube. Party gimmicks or not, they were the only things he had. He could hear the squeaking of the old man's shoes as he shuffled down the gallery toward the end of his aisle. What could he do? On either side, bookcases blocked his way out. Or did they? Each shelf was open-backed. On every row, he could see above the tops of the books into the next aisle. If he pushed himself through, he tossed the next cube and ran at the shelf. Maurice Schuyler. Or is it Schuyler or Schuyler?
Schuyler.
Schuyler, okay. Maurice Schuyler. Okay, there we go. Maurice Schuyler rounded the corner, his hand invisible inside its wavering bulb of force. Nathaniel hit the second shelf of books like a high jumper clearing a bar. He muttered the release command. The cube exploded in the old man's face. A starburst of purple sparks zipped and spun, high as the ceiling. A 19th century Czech marching song rang out briefly in accompaniment. In the next aisle along, 50 books crashed down like a falling wall. Nathaniel sprawled on top of them. He felt, rather than saw, the third bolt of plasm destroy the aisle behind him. The magician's voice now carried a slight note of irritation.
Little boy, time is short. Stand still, please.
But Nathaniel was already on his feet and hurtling toward the next shelf. He was moving too fast to think, never allowing himself a moment's pause, lest his terror rose up to overwhelm him. His one aim was to reach the door at the far end of the gallery. The old man had said there was a pentacle there.
John, listen.
He landed on his back in the next aisle, amid a shower of books.
I admire your resolve.
A leather-bound dictionary fell against the side of his head, making bright lights twinkle across his division. He struggled upright.
But it's foolish to seek revenge on your master's behalf.
Another burst of magical force. Another section of shelving vanished. The room was filled with thick, acrid smoke.
Foolish and unnatural. I myself killed my own master long ago. Now, if your Underwood had been a worthy man, I would understand it.
Ooh! Nathaniel threw the third cube behind him. It bounced harmlessly against a table and did not go off. He had forgotten to say the command.
But he was not a worthy man, was he, John? He was a driveling idiot. Now you will lose your life for him. You should have stayed away.
Nathaniel had reached the final aisle. He was not far from the door at the end of the room. It was a few strides off. But here, for the first time, he stopped dead. A great anger swelled inside him and damped down his fear. Shoes squeaked softly. The old man shuffled back up the gallery, following the trail of scattered books, checking each side aisle as he went. He saw no sign of the boy. Drawing near the door, he turned into the final aisle, hand raised at the ready. He clicked his tongue in exasperation. The aisle was empty. Nathaniel, who had silently clambered back through the shelves to the previous aisle and had now crept up behind him, thus had the element of surprise. 3 cubes hit the magician at once and exploded together at a single command. They were a lime green Catherine wheel, a ricocheting Viennese cannon, and an ultramarine bonfire. And although the effect of each one individually would have been modest, taken together they became quite potent. A medley of cheap popular ballads sounded, and the air instantly became heavy with the flavors of Rowan, Edelweiss?
Edelweiss. No,
And
Edelweiss, actually.
Edelweiss? Okay.
Edelweiss.
Edelweiss, and camphor. The combined explosion blew the old man off his feet and straight into the door at the end of the gallery. He hit it hard, head first. The door caved in. He slumped across it, his neck twisted oddly. The black energy pulsing on his hand was instantly snuffed out.
Oh my God, John. Nathaniel killed him.
Nathaniel walked slowly toward him through the smoke, cupping a final cube loosely in his palm. The magician did not move. Perhaps he was faking it. In a moment he would spring up, ready to fight. This was possible. He had to be ready for him. Closer. Still no movement. Now he was adjacent to the old man's splayed leather shoes. Another half step. Surely he would get up now. Maurice Schuyler did not get up. His neck was broken. His face sagged against a panel of the floor. His lips slightly apart. Nathaniel was close enough to count all the lines and creases on his cheek. He could see little red veins running across the nose and under the eye. The eye was open, but glazed, unseeing. It looked like that of a fish on a slab. A trace of limp white hair fell across it. Nathaniel's shoulders began to shake. For a moment he thought he was going to cry. Instead, he forced himself to remain motionless, waiting for his breathing to slow, for the shaking to die down. When his emotion was safely contained, he stepped over the body of the old man.
You made a mistake,
he said softly.
It is not my master that I'm doing this for.
The room beyond was small and windowless. It had perhaps once been a storeroom. A pentacle had been drawn in the center of the floor, with candles and incense pots carefully arranged around. 2 of the candles had been knocked over by the impact of the falling door, and these Nathaniel carefully set upright, in position. On one of the walls was a gold picture frame, hanging from a nail by a string. There was neither painting nor canvas inside the frame. Instead, it was filled with a beautiful image of a large circular sunny room in which many small figures moved. Nathaniel knew instantly what the frame was. A scrying glass, far sharper and more powerful than his lost bronze disc. He stepped close to inspect it. It showed a vast auditorium filled with chairs, whose carpeted floor shone strangely. The ministers were entering it from one side, laughing and chatting, still holding their glasses, accepting glossy black pens and folders from a line of servants by the door. The Prime Minister was there, at the center of a milling throng, the grim Afrit still attentively in tow. Lovelace had not yet arrived, but any moment now he would enter the hall and set his plan in motion. Nathaniel noted a box of matches lying on the floor. Hurriedly, he lit the candles, double-checked the incense, and stepped into the pentacle, admiring, despite his haste, the elegance in which it had been drawn. Then he closed his eyes, composed himself, and searched his memory for the incantation.
That's convenient.
After a few seconds, he had it ready. His throat was a little dry because of the smoke. He coughed twice and spoke the words. The effect was instantaneous. It had been so long since Nathaniel had completed a summons that he gave a little start when the genie appeared. It was in its gargoyle form and wore a peeved expression.
You really have got perfect timing, haven't you?
It said.
I'd just got the assassin where I wanted him, and all of a sudden, you remember how to call me.
It's about to start.
The effort of calling Bartimaeus had made Nathaniel lightheaded. He leaned against a wall to steady himself.
Look, there in the glass. The gathering. Lovelace is on his way now, and he'll be wearing the amulet, so he won't feel the effects of whatever happens. I think it's a summons.
You don't say. I'd worked that one out already. Well, come on then. Surrender to my tender claws.
It flexed them It flexed them experimentally. They let off a creaking sound. Nathaniel went white. The gargoyle rolled its eyes.
I'm going to have to carry you,
it said.
We'll have to hurry if we want to stop him entering the room. Once he's in, the place will be sealed. You can bet on that.
Gingerly, Nathaniel stepped forward. The gargoyle tapped a foot impatiently.
Don't worry on my account, it snapped. I won't strain my back or anything. I'm feeling angry, and my strength's returned.
With this, it made a grab, snatched Nathaniel around the waist, and turned to leave, only to trip over the body lying in the doorway.
Watch where you leave your victims! I stubbed my toe on that!
With a bound, it had cleared the debris and was leaping through the gallery, spurring itself on with great beats of its stony wings. Nathaniel's stomach lurched horribly with every stride.
Slow down,
he gasped.
You'll make me sick.
You won't like this, then!
Bartimaeus leaped through the arc at the end of the gallery, ignored the landing and the staircase completely, and plummeted directly to the hall 30 feet below. Nathaniel's wail made the rafters echo. Half flying, half leaping, the gargoyle negotiated the next corridor.
So,
it said agreeably,
you've made your first direct kill. How does it feel? Much more manly, I'm sure. Does it help blot out the death of Underwood's wife?
Nathaniel was too nauseous to listen, let alone answer. A minute later, The ride came to an end so abruptly that Nathaniel's limbs swung about like rag dolls. The gargoyle had halted at the corner of a long corridor. It dropped him to the floor and pointed silently up ahead. Nathaniel shook his head to stop his vision spinning and stared. At the other end of the corridor was the open door to the auditorium. 3 people stood there. A haughty servant who held the door ajar, the fish-faced magician Rufus Lime, and Simon Lovelace, who was buttoning up his collar. A brief flash of gold showed at his throat. Then the collar was adjusted and his tie wrapped in place. Lovelace clapped his companion on the shoulder and strode through the door.
We're too late.
Nathaniel hissed.
Can't you?
He looked to his side in surprise. The gargoyle was gone. A tiny voice whispered in his ear.
Smooth your hair down and get to the door. You can enter as a servant. Hurry it up!
Nathaniel ignored the strong desire to scratch his earlobe. He could feel something small and ticklish hanging there. He squared his shoulders, swept back his hair, and trotted along the corridor. Lime had departed elsewhere. The servant was swinging the door to.
Wait!
Nathaniel wished his voice were deeper and more commanding. He approached the servant at speed.
Let me in too. They want someone extra to serve the drinks.
Lady Burnett, if you please.
I don't recognize you.
The man said, frowning.
Where's young William?
He had a headache. I was called in at the last minute.
Footsteps along the corridor, a voice of command.
Wait!
Oh, shit, that's me. Wait! Nathaniel turned. He heard Bartimaeus swearing on the cusp of his earlobe. Oh, wait, yeah, no, that is you, Paulina. Never mind! Sorry, we'll edit that out in a bit. Okay. Nathaniel turned. He heard Bartimaeus swearing on the cusp of his earlobe. The black-bearded mercenary was approaching fast, barefoot, ragged cape, swinging blue eyes afire.
Quick!
The genie's voice was urgent.
The door's open, a crack slip inside!
The mercenary quickened his pace.
Paulina.
Stop that boy!
But Nathaniel was already jamming a boot heel down hard on the servant's toe. The man whooped with agony, and his clutching hand jerked back. With a wriggle and a squirm, Nathaniel evaded his grasp and, pushing at the door, squeezed himself through. The insect on his ear leaped up and down in agitation.
Shut it on them!
He pushed with all his strength, but the servant was now applying his full weight on the other side. The door began to swing open. Then the voice of the mercenary, calm and silky, sounded beyond the door.
Shut it on them.
No, don't bother.
Please, that might... Oh, don't bother.
It said.
Let him go in. He deserves his fate.
The force on the door eased, and Nathaniel was able to push it shut. Locks clicked into position within the wood. Bolts were drawn. The small voice spoke against his ear.
Now, that was ominous.
It said.
And that's chapter 40 of the Amulet of Samarkand. So, quick note. Edelweiss is a white flower found high in the Alps, and it also happens to be the name of a song from The Sound of Music.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I remember now.
Yep. So, what do you guys think of this chapter? There's not really much here, other than Bartimaeus being a dick. But, I mean, when is Bartimaeus not a dick?
This is also, like, it's been a hot minute since we had an action-packed chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So, I like how these action scenes are actually paced throughout throughout this book.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Lady Punnett?
It was Nathaniel's first kill.
Yeah!
It was.
Oh, this poor bean.
He does not have time to process it.
Nope.
Nope.
I don't think he's going to get time to process this until the end of the book, honestly.
It's also interesting how Jonathan Stroud described how Schuyler looked in death, and described how his death occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
Like, I liked how that whole scene was effectively described, just so that way the reader, at least in my opinion, for my perspective, making the reader go into a direct perspective of Nathaniel to see what he is seeing,
Mm-hmm.
as he is looking at and taking in the details of his first kill, because we know that Nathaniel hyperfixates on the tiny details.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that Nathaniel will take in everything when he has shown interest in something. In this case, wanting to make sure as to whether or not he needs to start attacking with those little metal cubes again, because he had been so focused on escaping this dude and distracting him long enough for him to get to the other side of this library, gallery, what have you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, he did not expect that some of these cubes, when used together, would make as much of an impact as it did, causing Schuyler to be thrown through the way that he was.
Yep.
And yeah, effectively, this was an accident. Nathaniel didn't mean to kill this dude. However, Nathaniel was also doing everything he could to survive.
He was in survival mode, and it was self-defense at that point. So.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And everything was happening so fast, and
Yep.
he's already not in a clear enough mental state from being hit and thrown about so much, and having to climb and vault and basically fall from bookshelves and gallery shelves, and also getting hit in the head by a dictionary falling on top of him, like falling onto the side of his head.
Oh,
bonking
that's
him
true.
good.
What
There's
was
a
that
chance he has a concussion.
What was
Yeah.
that? What was that they said about words not hurting?
Yeah, but basically, and like Lady Punnett says, there's a chance he could be suffering a concussion right now.
They really threw the book at him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You could say they hit the books hard.
Yep. Thankfully, he's got a thick head.
Yeah. Another thing, and this continues to prove the now canon theory that he has an eidetic memory. He was able to remember the summoning words for Bartimaeus.
Yep.
And he said he had to search in his mind for it.
Yep. Yeah, I got the impression that he was searching through it much like a card catalog or, library shelves or something like that.
Or basically, what I was thinking is the Mind Palace in Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With,
Benedict Cumberbatch.
yes, that lovely gentleman.
Very lovely gentleman.
I saw.
Would have
recently
preferred if
that-
they
oh,
didn't. They kind of slight note on that. They kind of pandered the whole possible homosexuality thing with that. I find. Just a smidge. I always had the headcanon that Sherlock Holmes was asexual, aromantic.
Yeah.
I honestly think he may have been, and honestly,
It definitely shows with how Benedict portrayed Sherlock.
the way Benedict Cumberbatch, or as I like to call him, Benadryl Kumquat, portrayed Sherlock, he's very much coded as a neurodivergent.
Now,
Well,
people can also argue with Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of Sherlock Holmes. Yeah, I can see where the sexualization comes in.
Yeah.
However, if you want a more accurate portrayal, look at Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing though, I liked the relationship with Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock, because I don't know, it felt a bit more, they were equals, whereas with the Benedict Cumberbatch one, John Watson was more like the sidekick. That's the only thing. But we're not here talking about Sherlock Holmes, even
Not
though
yet, anyway.
Bringing
not yet.
this back around.
Bring it back around. Because we got into this tangent, because he has the eidetic memory that Sherlock Holmes has, a lot of intelligence-based heroes and protagonists typically have some sort of eidetic memory, or at the very least, some of them have like a photographic memory. And thinking back to it now, it makes me wonder if this character might have been based off of those, along with like Reed from Criminal Minds.
Ooh.
I've actually never seen Criminal Minds, so I have no point of reference for that.
Also has an eidetic memory, has a bunch of different doctorates. He's only like 24.
Fair.
Oh, yeah.
Think like a more socialized Sheldon Cooper.
Gotcha.
A likable Sheldon Cooper.
Gotcha.
Sheldon's pretty likable enough. He has character growth.
Yeah, there is some character.
Okay, I'll put it this way. Reed Richards would be able to go into an event and get along with people without insulting them. Whereas Sheldon Cooper, if you tried to leave him to his own devices, would insult everyone in the room.
I'm sorry, did you just say Reed Richards?
I think,
Yeah,
no, wrong one. Wrong one.
I was going to say, that's not a reference to the Fantastic Four or anything like that.
No. Although Reed Richards also seems to have an eidetic memory, if I recall correctly.
Welcome back, Critter Shy.
Welcome back.
Hi.
But yeah, so it continues to prove that eidetic memory. Crittershy, Nathaniel had his first kill. They are now in the event hall, where it looks like they're going to summon something. So I want to put my 10 bits down and to say they're going to try and summon something from maybe the equivalent of the 9 hells, since we had a lot of biblical things happening, early stated in here.
Exactly what they're going to summon.
I know you know what they're going to summon. That's why you're not involved in this conversation. You're not involved in this conversation.
See what happens every time I say, I know what's going to happen.
Yeah, shut the hell up!
But yeah, so
You take that spoiler attitude of yours and shove it!
I don't do spoilers. You know that.
I know
I was
that.
making a
I know
simple.
that.
I was making a simple comment. I know what they're going to summon.
Yeah, and you can take that knowledge and shove it!
There's a reason I haven't been commenting.
But yes, going along with the statement, I think they're either going to summon something from possibly biblical things, so maybe one of the 9 circles of hell, or going a little bit more to left field, since we have a lot of Egyptian inspiration, possibly trying to summon something from that, which is terrifying, because when you try to summon something from Egyptian lore, it is typically a god.
Yeah.
Or an avatar of the god.
Yeah.
There's a big old price tag.
Yeah.
Yep.
It literally has one of the serpents, like the earth serpents, who is a devourer of everything,
summoning
and the
horn.
only... Yeah.
What was the summoning horn used on last?
Let me go back up. That was
'Cause-
from 2 chapters ago?
We haven't-
Last chapter, there was mention of the summoning horn. However, the first mention of the summoning horn was earlier in the book when Bartimaeus was first in Lovelace's home.
Well, apparently it hasn't been used since the last time it was used, which was a long time ago.
Which was the first time it was made. And the person that made it, those are his... That's his hand. That's their handprint on that horn.
I'm gonna put... So, here's the thing. A lot of gods... So, the Egyptians were similar to... Because not everyone's interested in Egyptian lore, but a lot of people are interested in Greek lore. Similar to the Greeks, the Egyptians had a god for pretty much everything with a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
Now, one of the main ones I can think of Now, her name is escaping me right now, but basically, she is a devourer of everything.
Mm-hmm. This is an Egyptian goddess?
It's an Egyptian goddess. And the main thing I remember from her, because I had a big thing about Egyptian lore, she was 2 goddesses in one, actually. And the way you would, like, calm her down was if you gave her enough wine, she turned into a bovine goddess.
So, here's the quote for the horn.
Uh-huh.
Let me see here.
Quotes.
The room had no windows. There were several cabinets against the walls, filled with magical paraphernalia. Most of it was quite useless, fit only for stage shows, but there were a few intriguing items there. There was a summoning horn that I knew was genuine, because it made me feel ill to look at it. One blast of that, and anything in the magician's power would be at his feet, begging for mercy and pleading to do his bidding. It was a cruel instrument, and very old, and I couldn't go near it.
Why can't he go near it?
Because it gives him the ickies.
It gives him the ickies. Okay, wait. Something else to take note. He said it was very old.
Yep.
We all know that Bartimaeus considers, like, a couple hundred years to be young.
Bartimaeus' name has been around since 3000 BCE.
So if he thinks it's old, this thing's been around possibly since before, like...
Him.
Yeah.
So I found 2 possible Egyptian goddesses. Did she have the head of a lion or the head of a crocodile?
I think it was the head of a crocodile.
Yeah, that the crocodile was like instant. Bing.
Yeah, that would be Amit. She was the god. She was a god. Amit. She was a goddess in ancient Egyptian religion with the 4 quarters of a lion, the hind quarters of a hippopotamus, and the head of a crocodile. The 3 largest man-eating animals known to ancient Egyptians. A funerary deity, her titles included Devourer of the Dead, Eater of Hearts, and Great of Death. Amit lived near the scales of justice in Duat, the Egyptian underworld. In the Hall of Two Truths, Anubis weighed the heart of a person against the feather of Mat, the goddess of truth, which was depicted as an ostrich feather. The feather was often pictured in Mat's headdress. If the heart was judged to be impure, Amit would devour it, and the person undergoing judgment was not allowed to continue their voyage towards Osiris and immortality. Once cast into the fiery lake to be destroyed.
That's the bitch.
Yeah, no. Once Amit swallowed the heart, the soul was believed to become restless forever. This was called to die a second time. Amit was also sometimes said to stand by a lake of fire. In some traditions, the unworthy hearts were cast into the fiery lake to be destroyed. That's what I meant to say. Some scholars believe Amit and the lake represent the same concept of destruction. Amit was not worshipped. Instead, she embodied all that the Egyptians feared, threatening to bind them to eternal restlessness if they did not follow the principle of Mat.
Fucking Egyptian furries.
Well, yeah, so here's the thing. There's quite a few gods and goddesses who are all about, like, destroying the world, and how Ra typically stops it from happening, because Ra is the god, is the king of all the gods, and the pharaohs are always that. But yeah, that's why I think if they're trying to summon something, we have a lot of Egyptian motifs happening, and, I mean, Egypt is, like, one of the longest known societies. So if it's old even to Bartimaeus, I would think he'd be, like, one of the oldest civilizations, which narrows it down to, like, the Egyptians, the Romans, the Greeks.
Actually,
Samaritan, possibly?
And
if I'm
the,
not...
the Chinese.
Not mistaken, because I'm currently going through anthropology. The oldest known evidence of complex society, also known as civilization, is ancient Mesopotamia.
Okay, here's a different way we can go about this. Which civilization has had a horn the longest?
That I don't know.
Hold on. Maybe I can look this up.
Mesopotamia, I'm just pulling up a map for comparison.
Where was Mesopotamia?
1 second. If I go modern day Mesopotamia, Mesopotamia stretches from, let me see here. See if I can get an accurate map. And maybe here.
Oh, wait, no. The goddess I was thinking of was the one with the lion headdress.
So-
She's the one that turns into the bovine goddess if she gets drunk enough.
Mesopotamia is a historical region of Western Asia situated within the Tigris-Euphrates river system in the northern part of the Fertile Crescent. Today, Mesopotamia occupies modern Iraq. In broader sense, historical region included present-day Iraq and Kuwait and parts of present-day Iran, Syria, and Turkey. The Sumerians and Akkadians, originating from different areas in present-day Iraq, dominated Mesopotamia from the beginning of written history, circa 3100 BC, to the fall of Babylon in 539 BC, when it was conquered by the Achaemenid Empire and fell to Alexander the Great in 332, and after his death became part of the Greek Seleucid Empire, and later the Arameans dominated major parts of Mesopotamia circa 900 BC to 270 AD. It's the site of the earliest developments of Neolithic revolution from around 10,000 BC. It's been identified as having, quote, inspired some of the most important developments in human history, including the invention of the wheel, the planting of the first cereal crops, and the development of cursive script, mathematics, astronomy, and agriculture, and it has also been known as one of the world's earliest civilizations.
So I looked up the history of blowing horns. This is a Wikipedia article, so take it for what you will, based on what it has so far. The oldest varieties were made of horns of bovidae and wood. The earliest findings in Europe are Bronze Age metal horns, the strength of which resulted in its better endurance of the rigors of time. As a result, previous traces of other materials have vanished, so the oldest surviving animal horn dates back to the late Iron Age in Visnum, Sweden. As big horned animals are rarely found in Scandinavia, blowing horns are often made from wood, wound birch bark, or bout, called a lure. Now, there is a depiction of a horn attributed to the 10th century Magyar chieftain Lehol, kept in, I'm going to do my best to pronounce this, but I am certain I am going to butcher it, so I am apologizing profusely before. Jasperini in Hungary. It is a place in Hungary. A city and market center in... I'm not even going to attempt that. I'm not even going to attempt that name, but it's a county in Hungary.
Okay. I was kind of hoping it would be like Egyptian, because there's some bovine in Egypt.
Yeah, like I would have expected something, especially if I'm remembering correctly. There's some hieroglyphic depictions of blowing horn, so maybe hold on.
So here's an interesting fact that I've actually gathered from my anthropology courses in school.
Yay.
The human species effectively started in Africa. We're not quite sure where. We don't exactly know where. But we know it was somewhere probably around northern Africa, which at the time, if I remember correctly, was fertile lands. It was all forest. Of course, climate change, natural climate change and all that stuff has changed the face of that entire area, and we're now going back and finding the remnants of these ancient people that could be considered some of the earliest humans, right? The thing is, when we discovered fire, we started cooking our meat. That gave us proteins, which allowed our brains to expand and whatnot. And the consumption of cooked meat is also directly linked with the human expansion out of Africa. To get out of Africa, they would have had to either go Morocco via Spain, according to present-day maps, which probably wasn't a thing, or they would have probably had to go through Egypt.
So in Egypt, I also took a look to see if there was anything about blowing horns for Egypt. What they had was Tutankhamun's trumpets. They are a pair of trumpets found in the burial chamber of the 18th dynasty pharaoh Tutankhamun.
King Tut.
Yeah, King Tut. The trumpets, one of sterling silver and one of bronze or copper, are considered to be the oldest operational trumpets in the world and the only known surviving examples from ancient Egypt.
Coming out of Egypt, you have moving out into the rest of the world, you have the following countries. Listen to these: Israel, Syria, Iraq, Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Bulgaria, Istanbul, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan. They're all in that same area.
It's Istanbul.
With basically expansion outwards, this would follow that entire pattern. That entire area is highly localized.
I just remembered something else, though. I think because it's made of ivory, right?
Yeah.
So ivory is elephant tusk.
Yeah.
In some cases, there are other animals that have ivory tusks.
Hold on. What animals have? Okay.
I think it's like. I think also rhinos have it.
Rhinos, I believe, have ivory horns, which is why rhinos are actually, I believe, a protected species at the moment because people have been poaching them.
Yeah.
There's actually a rhino that has 24-hour guards.
Yep.
Because it's the last of its species.
What is it? The white rhino?
Yeah, the white rhino. Elephants are most known for their ivory, but other animals like the walrus, hippopotamus, narwhal, sperm whale, and warthog also have tusks or teeth that are made up of a similar chemical structure. The word ivory is used to identify any mammalian tooth or tusk that is of commercial interest.
But here's what I was getting at. Syria, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia would all be considered part of Mesopotamia. That is true. That first example of one of the first examples of the most ancient civilizations and complex societies that we have. It's all in that area. Oh, so Kira Lynn says, "Welcome out." First of all, welcome on in, Kira Lynn. Kira Lynn says a baby white rhino was actually born this year.
Yay!
But no, it's all concentrated kind of in that area, right? And that's all considered part of ancient Mesopotamia.
So that means most likely this horn was actually made of a tusk or a horn from an animal since it has ivory in it.
Yeah.
Now, typically, the Egyptians were well known for using all of the animal bits because otherwise that's like a slap in the face to the gods. Now, the Mesopotamians probably also did it as well, since they're some of the earliest things. It's kind of like that whole, you can't prove who invented noodles first, the Chinese or the Italians.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of hard to prove who came up with it first. But we know that Jonathan Stroud isn't afraid to do his research.
Oh, no, that's interesting.
Especially when you consider that, the world that Jonathan Stroud created for the Bartimaeus Trilogy, the Bartimaeus series, is alternative history. It is a parallel world to ours with some tweaks here and there to basically make this world make sense as much as he can.
It still pulls off of our world's information and geography, though. Here's something interesting. Along with Mesopotamia, which was kind of an entire area, Babylon is situated in Iraq.
Babylon?
Oh,
Babylon.
You mean like the ancient...
As in the ancient city, yes. Babylon.
Interesting.
Civilization.
That's
Wasn't that also one of the ones that had like a heavy magic-based thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Babylon was one of the first again, it's an example of one of the first complex societies, right? One of the most ancient civilization gathering areas that we have.
And I think one of the primary reasons it's called Babylon was because of the Babylonian Tower, the tower that in which was never completed because the workers who were building it, it was the thing that caused different languages. It made people develop different languages, which stopped the production because no one was able to communicate with each other after the gods had cast different groups of people in that project to speak different languages.
Specifically according to certain religious texts. I you know what, I might have to dig into some of the history behind Babylon and get a better frame of reference.
But so far we know that this thing's old. It's made with ivory. We don't know from what exactly, but we know it's probably some sort of tusk or horn from an animal. And most animals who have ivory are based in African, Asian, or Egyptian areas.
Or at least Middle Eastern areas.
At least Middle Eastern, especially with how old it is, because, as we said, Bartimaeus called the horn itself old.
Very old.
And it gives him an icky feeling when he's around it.
Yep.
That being said, I think that this is a good place to end this chapter for now, this episode. So
I'm excited for a possible kaiju fight.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I can't wait to see your guys' reaction to what's coming up. That being said, thank you very much for joining us for Chapter 41 of the Amulet of Samarkand and Episode 56 of the Idiot Book Nook podcast. If you'd like to follow us on social media, you can do so at linktr.ee/idiotbooknook. You'll find links to all of our socials. You'll find links to our Twitch. You'll find links to our Anchor platform where you can leave us voicemail messages, link to our website, and all of that jazz. Critter, we will get your socials up there at some point. So just bear with me.
I need help to set this up.
Yeah, we will get your socials up, so just bear with us. But guys, for episode 56 and chapter 41 of the Amulet of Samarkand, I'm Blazewing.
I am the Reading Dragon.
I'm Lady Punnet.
And I'm Crittershy.
And we'll see you for chapter 40. Sorry, episode 55 and chapter 40 of the Amulet of Samarkand and the Idiot Book Nook. I keep fucking up my episode numbers. Sorry.
So I scrolled through all that for no reason.
Oh, you're good. We will see you next episode, chapter 41.
For those that are watching the Twitch stream, please stick around a moment, if you would.
Correct. For those of you listening to the podcast, see you later.
Bye.